and welcome to the Skillwork Forum, where again we gather every week and talk about industry issues, emerging trends, and challenges around the skilled trade space. I'm Tim. I always join with my friend and partner here, Brett, from Skillwork. And today we're going to talk about a topic that may be near and dear to your hearts out there. It's this idea of how do we reduce attrition in manufacturing. And more specifically, we're going to focus on skilled trades within manufacturing. But before we get into that, you may be wondering, or maybe not, but we'll bring it up anyway. Why are we wearing these shirts? A little different. I got my camo on. Brett's got his fishing shirt on there. This is an offshore fishing shirt. And the reason we're wearing this is because we're proud to talk about a show that we sponsor, Texas Boys Outdoors, that take military veterans, first responders, people with disabilities, kids especially, out into the great outdoors. We're very proud to be a title sponsor of their show. And Brett recently got back from a trip with them, took one of our skilled tradesmen on an offshore fishing trip. Made me really jealous because he caught a bunch of fish.
It did. We caught some, we were saltwater fishing, which I haven't done a ton of. I've done a lot of freshwater fishing. And so the guys down there, shout out to Roy and Matt, the camera guy, and like you said, our guy Kendrick. Yeah, we got to catch some speckled trout and some big redfish. It was a blast, and that episode will be coming out to recognize National Skilled Trade Appreciation Day, sometime around the 1st of May.
Yeah, that's cool. And I've got this sweet camo shirt because we're going to get a chance to go back down with our Texas Boy Outdoors friends and do a wild boar hunt, maybe some turkey hunting. We'll be taking another skilled tradesman down there with us, a military veteran, and that's going to be around the time of Memorial Day. So, again, we want to honor and respect our skilled tradesmen and craftsmen, but we also really believe in the mission of the Texas Boys Outdoors. So, get a chance to check them out on the Pursuit channel. Great group of guys that are doing great stuff. So, and we get a chance to change our outfit up a little bit too. So
I know.
I'm feeling more manly today for some reason. I'm not sure why. But so we talked about today. We're going to talk about attrition in manufacturing, particularly skilled trades. So think about mechanics, electromechs, control technicians, ammonia, refrigeration, boiler, wastewater. So those kind of skilled trades that you may use in manufacturing and, maybe some more specific in food manufacturing. But we're going to focus on how to reduce attrition in that space. And turnover has always been an issue and a challenge. And right now it's very high, unprecedented levels of attrition in manufacturing. And it's spilled over into your skilled trade. So it's always been a challenge for frontline workers. Now you're starting to see it in your skilled trade space over the past 10 years. We've talked a lot about the reasons behind this. There's the great quit, the big resignation, a big exodus or transition of people out of the workforce. There's demand and the fact that many baby boomers are exiting the workforce. So we've talked about a lot of those reasons why, but we're going to try to offer up some help, some tips today about how to reduce your attrition in this particular space.
Yeah. As Tim said, there's a variety of things. For years, we talk about it on here. I was in the manufacturing space, specifically in the food manufacturing space, for about 35 years, and in the last 10 years of that, which goes back a little bit because we've been here at Skillwork now for a little while. But anyhow, for a long time, the maintenance staff was pretty consistent. You would get individuals, they'd come, they'd become part of your maintenance team, and there was a consistency there that you didn't really have as much in the, like we said, in the general manufacturing space, which has always been a high turnover in a lot of facilities. But in the last 10 years, I sold that company in 2013 and left that industry to start Skillwork, in about 2017. But in those last 10 years, really started to see this impact that now you were seeing it in the and as Tim indicated, part of it was age, retirement. Part of it was opportunity and the willingness to move around more.
Right.
But the other thing that, and I experienced this specifically, was as it became more difficult to fill those positions because of the other things we talked about, companies started lowering the bar, of what they would, with the idea of the mentality that, well, we'll train the talent. We can't find the talent, so we'll train the talent. And in that process, it increased the turnover numbers because a lot of those individuals just didn't work out. So that has driven to a higher. We're going to talk about that a little bit more here in a minute. But overall, we talk to a wide variety of companies in our business that we're helping them fill their skilled trade needs. And we hear numbers from attrition and a turnover, which can be a little bit different, but ultimately ends up in the same number, of companies in the skilled trade space that are now exceeding about a 50% turnover rate.
Crazy.
That leads to a variety of issues, everything from your decreasing your OEE numbers, in your efficiencies in your manufacturing facilities, which obviously is anybody that's listening to this that's in that space knows what that's costing, and then just overall culture erosion. When you have a high level of turnover, it leads to more culture erosion. And so we're going to unpack those some more and kind of try to maybe give some insight as to things you can do to impact it.
Yeah, so we'll walk through a couple of things that we believe you can do to help, stem the flood, if you will. I mean, we're all in this right now, and we're all going to be facing attrition challenges. So we're not saying that you're going to solve all your problems completely, but it's kind of like that analogy of two guys in the woods with the bear. You don't have to outrun the bear, you just have to outrun the other guy, and you just have to be ahead of your competition. So here's some things you can do. One of the first things is, you don't often think about this when you think about your frontline workers or your skilled tradesmen, but communicating vision is crucial to your organization. It's the lifeblood of your organization, that people understand what you're about. They want to feel part of something. And there's a great Proverbs, a book of wisdom in the Bible that I think really points this out. And it says, where there is no vision or where there is no revelation, the people perish. And another translation says they have no restraint. So there's nothing holding them back. But the opposite of that is blessed or, profitable or goodness comes to those who heeds wisdom's instructions. So hopefully we'll give you some wisdom here. But the bottom line is, when you don't have vision, you don't have direction and clarity, it causes chaos in your organization. So your employees need to get that from you. They want to feel like they're having an impact. What they do matters. So if you connect them to something bigger than just showing up and completing their shift, it matters. And, it can't be shallow, and it can't be company slogans, and it can't be rah-rah speeches. It has to be something you, from the leadership all the way down, have to believe and live out. It's probably counterproductive if you say words and you don't do them.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So it's crucial that you got to share the information, both positive and negative, be honest, but your vision, where you're going, where you're taking them, why it matters what they do, is so important to keeping people there. So I think you have a story that kind of leads into this.
Yeah, but I think it matters. I think sometimes we got to be careful as leadership of organizations that we don't push news far enough down into the facilities. Your skilled trade, your frontline manufacturing workers, they really want to feel like they're having an impact. We talk our guys out there all the time. I mean, if they can reduce downtime in a facility, it starts to have meaning to them. Back as we talked, as we do from time to time, as I said, I spent a lot of time in the food manufacturing space. I made cooked bacon. That's what we did. So it was a great life. All the bacon you could eat, and one of our customers, a great customer, we'll plug them today, was Culver's, the restaurant chain. We made all their cooked bacon, and I don't remember what year this was, probably 2010 or something. I'm not sure, but we were Culver's Supplier of the Year, and we bought Culver's T-shirts for everybody in the plant. and the excitement of I almost think it meant more to the people in the plant, who, to be honest with you, probably before that, they kind of knew we made that covered bacon. We made a lot of chains bacon, but it just meant something to them, and we recognized that, and there was a pride in that they had won that award, and that was really our message to them. That really I didn't do anything. I managed the relationship on this end, but we don't win that award if we're not putting the right product out. So I think those things matter. The days of having the attitude, and sadly, a lot of manufacturing facilities did, at one time, of they should just be glad they have a job. Those days are gone. It's almost, unfortunately, it's almost flipped the other way. You should just be glad somebody showed up for work, and we're trying to get to some balance in a healthy organization. So.
Yeah, I was thinking of great leaders, and from a military perspective, the largest amphibious assault and invasion that ever took place is D-Day in World War II, and all the way down to the unit level, everybody kind of knew what their specific job was. But General Eisenhower, he put this famous speech out for everybody to read to give them a broader purpose and sense of what they were doing. They were impacting the future of the world, and their future of their kids and their grandkids, and what they were doing mattered. He knew the consequences and the cost that it was going to take, but inspiring them to look beyond just their specific mission to a bigger thing. It really matters to people, and I think the point you made about not giving information down at the lowest level and letting them know, how's the company performing, how does it impact what we're doing and those customer relations, and assuming that I'm paying them to do a job to keep those machines running.
Yep.
It's not a good attitude, and you're not going to keep people around because they don't feel respected and they don't feel valued or part of something else. So communicating vision, we emphasize it, and because it's important. The second thing is hire smart. Brett, you talked about a little bit in the beginning, the idea that numbers and just bringing people in and lowering the bar is not necessarily a good thing.
No, it's not. So with the idea of hiring smart and hiring what you need, specifically, we talk to companies all the time who say they've lowered the bar, and they're in a really tough spot because they're literally their answer is, there's nobody else to hire, and so they keep lowering the bar and in the skilled space to bring in those individuals, and in the process of doing that, they're increasing their turnover. It creates a frustration. So if you've got 20 maintenance techs on your team, and now through this process of turnover and attrition, you've literally got to the point where about 10 of them have experience and about 10 of them don't have a whole lot, and that other 10 that don't have, the turnover's high, and while it may not be intentional, those 10 that have been there, they're now getting frustrated.
Yep.
They're getting frustrated by the lack of talent that they right or wrong, they view the company, it doesn't care, or they're not, you send in these people, they don't know what they're doing, that kind of thing. That starts to create culture issues that can become very, very costly in the long run as you erode the culture of your business. So lowering that bar, increasing the turnover, has a lot of side effects too. The other one that can't be denied, the risk of hiring less talented, inexperienced, skilled trade individuals oftentimes leads to more accidents in the facility because they just don't have the experience, which drives your work comp, your mod rates up, and all the same. So those decisions to not find better solutions and hire better, has a lot of side effects.
It really does, and besides the business consequences of safety, again, that's a crazy cycle of if your employees don't feel like it's a safe environment and it's no longer being emphasized, that's going to generate more turnover as well. So it's important that as part of hiring smart, you set goals clearly. What is it you're really looking for? Make sure the requirements are very clear. Have some standards. Make sure that you don't lower those standards. And, again, I mention this often. Don't be penny wise and pound foolish. Make sure you're taking the long game. And, sometimes in our haste, we lower the bar and it has a lot of unintended consequences. And also just not being very clear about what an ideal candidate looks like. One great hire is better than 5 or 10 bad hires. So take your time to get that one. Have an expectation of what experience and knowledge, and ask those frontline workers. Go out there, your frontline maintenance workers, ask those guys, what is it you're looking for? What makes an ideal? Who would you want to have on your shift, on your team? Get their input. It matters. Make sure that they're driving that. And the other thing we really believe in here is let them be part of the hiring process.
Yep.
Let them have the final say as to whether this is a guy I want on my shift. Sometimes it all gets elevated up to the plant manager or the plant engineer, not to the shift that the guy's going to be working on. So we think that there's a lot of value in pushing that decision down to the lower level. And again, we talk about this often too. Make sure your reference checks are validated and you're getting thorough reference checks that ask the right questions about the skills, experience, culture, personality that you need in your plant. Not all reference checks are created equally. Make sure that you do a thorough job of those and they're based on reality. But definitely get reference checks. It's important.
Yeah, the third one that we want to talk about is make the interview matter. What we've seen, and could probably say I was guilty of in my time, is in a quest just to find help. It's almost the interview process has become, in some cases, it has just become almost just a pass-through. Yeah. And that I would challenge or encourage to say that you really need to make the interview matter. And Tim said it a minute ago. Our recommendation would be, we do, in our business, we find skilled talent, we bring them to clients, and in our model, we then do an interview between us, the candidate, and the client. So we set on a lot of interviews, and those companies do that interview process, utilizing Zoom that everybody now has gotten used to, and so, but there's some that do it really, really well, and there's some that don't do it as well. The ones for sure, and the majority of ours do this, the interview is conducted by people in the skilled trade space. No disrespect, but that's always a loaded way to say I'm about to disrespect them, is to HR people, but asking your control technician, what kind of tree he would be if he was a tree, is not going to find you what you're looking for. And so those HR fluffy questions that you can, Google and say, this is what makes a good interview. Maybe it does for trees. I don't know what it would be good for.
What flavor of ice cream would you be?
But in this space, you know what you're looking for. You're looking for skilled trade talent. Have your skilled trade talent be part of that interview process. Have them ask the right questions. We have a company, I won't use their name because I didn't ask permission to, very large company, you clearly would know who they are, but they do, of all the companies we have, and we work with a lot of companies, of all the companies we have, their interview process with us and with the guys is the best I've ever seen. It's hard. I would not want to have to go through the interview. I mean, it is, but when that interview is done, and they do it with a lot of respect, and they're very gracious, but it's a test, and when it's done, they know at least, they may not know if that person is 100% a culture fit, but they know whether or not they've got the skills that they're looking for.
Yeah.
It's very thorough.
It's interesting to me that there's a direct correlation between the chaos going on at the facility and how well they manage and organize their interview process.
Yeah.
And part of that is just because they've gotten past the point where they just don't. I mean, they're overwhelmed. So no knock to that, but again, that's something that we can add value in. We can help. Bring a little bit of clarity and structure to your interview process. That's what we do all day, every day. So that's something we can help you out with too. So we're not intended to knock you because some people are just too busy. But Brett makes really valid points there, and we drink our own Kool-Aid with that. We when we bring people into our company here at our headquarters, there's a very, very thorough vetting process. At the end of the day, the team the individual is going to be part of, they're the decision maker. Brett and I have been overruled by their decision, and we've been, smart enough to listen to what they say in there because they're the ones that got to work with them every day. So the next thing is about how do you reduce attrition in the manufacturing space for your skilled craftsmen. We talked a little bit about it, but you got to have a good working environment, a pleasant environment. The culture has to be good. We see all different types, and we have some clients, and one that we're working with right now that it's interesting. They have two facilities closely located with each other, same parent company, facilities within visible range of each other. I'm trying not to be too specific, but the culture in one versus the culture in the other is just night and day. And one is people don't want to be there, and their turnover rate is through the roof, and people we send in there have a challenge being in there. And the other one is people want to be there and want to work there. Why? It's similar in many, many ways, except for the culture and the environment that they're walking into. Safety is a huge thing. At the end of the day, you have a safe environment. What you're really saying is, I care about you, and I want you to go home at the end of the day. I work for a company, Union Pacific Railroad, has got a long history. And safety there is no question. Anybody that's been around Union Pacific and that railroad will tell you that it is about safety 24/7. Even in the headquarters building where I worked at, you literally had to have a safety brief to have a meeting in a conference room. Okay, now is that going overboard? Maybe. But the idea was, their whole point was, we want you to go home every day to be with your family. And that communicates I care about you. So it's not just about mod rates and workers' comp. That's important, obviously, but really that's an indicator of how much you care about your people at the end of the day. So an organized work environment, an efficient and a clean work environment, that you clean up after yourself. So those sort of little things. No one wants to work in chaos. No one wants to work in a unclean or unsafe environment. What it creates is that idea that we introduced earlier, that it just creates this repetitive, crazy cycle, that it's a self-licking ice cream cone that you create. People don't want to be there because of all the things that are driven by being understaffed. More people leave, you become more understaffed. It creates more inefficiency that leads to a chaotic environment, and on and on and on. You have to take, measures to be able to stop it. Make a stop to that. Start making incremental changes. It can't all happen overnight. Start making incremental changes that communicate to your people that you care about them by doing practical things like your work environment and respect too, Brett. Maybe you want to talk about that. It's one of our core values. And how important is that to your people in a manufacturing facility, any facility, really?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what Tim's kind of indicating, it's broad. Like you said, there's the working conditions of the facility, and then there's just the environment, of how people treat each other, so if you're treated with respect, you're going to want to be there. And clearly, if you're not, you won't. But I think as management, we can't just assume that that's the environment. Tim indicated a minute ago, we've got a couple facilities, same company. If we're honest, it's a leadership issue. It's leadership drives the values that those facilities, and it's usually, it's probably not, corporate will set a standard, they'll set an expectation, the environment is going to be driven by the individuals in that facility. So making sure that you value, our number 2 value as an organization is to bring respect and value back to the trades. And so, same thing, our guys and gals that we put out in the field, if we put them in a facility where they're not getting that, they're not going to want to be there, and clearly then their own people aren't going to want to be there. And so it's really important promoting a productive, happy, healthy, and engaged workplace.
Yeah.
It sounds so simple, but it's kind of surprising sometimes that it can be a little unique.
Well, it's interesting because we talk a lot of times about it's simple, but simple doesn't mean easy.
Yep.
And I can tell you it's hard work. And it requires intentionality to foster and maintain a culture of respect. And we deal with it here. Every workplace does, whether you have 2 people or 2,000. You have to be able to walk the fine line of respect, but also engaging in difficult conversations. You're in a manufacturing environment where it's a tough, hard, sometimes, it's a life or death. In a lot of cases, you're dealing with high voltage electricity, so it's not a daycare, but we understand that you can have direct conversations. You can be very clear about expectations, hold people to high standards, and still do it with respect. So a demeaning environment is not very good. So that's a big deal to minimize your attrition. The next one, is we've talked about it in different podcasts, is make sure you're paying your people well and giving them the...
Exactly, yep. No, pay, as we say, to act like money doesn't matter, you're kind of kidding yourself. Of course, you can do all these other things, and there's still, individuals, they want to be paid fairly. Now, tons of research and studies will show that money by itself will not keep people if all these other things are not happening. But it has to be, especially in today's environment in the skilled trade space. It's very competitive. You all know that. It's difficult to find the talent. If you find it, you want to keep it. The challenge is the guy across town or down the road, he needs the talent too, so he's chasing yours. And so you've got to know, are we competitive? Are we competitive in the space? Because if you don't know, your employees will know, and once one of them figures it out, once one skilled guy leaves and goes to your competitor, and might not even be your competitor, could be in a totally different space, that news travels fast. So you want to stay on top of that. The money matters, and being fair with people. If the cost of the skilled talent, which we know for a fact, it's increasing. We've seen what the average cost of mechanics and electrotechs and the different things. We've seen a bump in all of those, and so you just got to be aware of that. In addition, it's not just money. It's look at your benefit packages. Make sure that you're providing good and fair benefits. Health insurance, 401k, those kinds of things. Are pretty standard. But it matters. It definitely matters. The wait time that it takes to get health insurance and that kind of things, the little things that can make a difference. We've talked about it in other podcasts too, Tim, about, it's a little bit unique when we say flexible schedules, because obviously your schedule in a manufacturing facility is dictated by when the facility runs. But you can be flexible from saying we've seen companies who allow employees to change a shift because hey, I need next Tuesday off to go to my kid's recital or whatever the case may be, and allowing that flexibility to do a little bit of job share, at least enough flexibility that it provides that you would allow it. You can do other things. Obviously things like daycare or a lot of facilities, anymore will even help provide transportation. Anything that can reduce the burden and the stress to manage through. Obviously, there's been an enormous amount of added stress in the last couple years. Everything from kids being in school, out of school, all of that. All of that has become part of things that we're dealing with. We feel like we're hopefully a little bit on the backside of some of that, but still, anything you can do to reduce that, type of thing. You can do fun perks. You can put a ping pong table in the break room. You can put a bouncy house in the parking lot if that's what you want to do. I'm going to suggest do it for the company picnic, but it's probably not going to keep your employees. So we get a little too cute sometimes on those things and thinking that they're not bad. Hey, if you want to get a golden tee golf thing and put it in your conference room, it's great, and so it's fun, but it's probably not going to keep people there. So.
Yeah, in addition to we're coming out of COVID and where everybody's aware as you're reading this that inflationary pressures and the war that's going on over between Ukraine and Russia and the impact the economics. So the stress and pressure on your staff just to buy gas to drive their pickup to and from work, daycare, everything's going to go up. So you really need to get out ahead of this and recognize that. And if you want to keep your folks, it could be that $1 an hour could be the difference between you keeping somebody and not if their daycare price is going up 20%. So really pay attention to that, and as we're fixated on the cost to run our business, don't forget the cost that it is being passed on to your employees to go there, and the smart employees are considering that as well. So last thing we'll talk about is employee engagement as a way to reduce attrition to your staff. And some of the things we've talked about are around this, but other podcasts we focused on how to do it, and we're really big fans of engaging your employees, looking for ways to expand their skills, upskilling, up-training, certifications, OEM training, always looking to provide them opportunities to get better. That communicates you care about them, and it helps you as well. So invest in your people. That's not a cost, that's an investment. And we're big fans of that. I love this statement that some companies will say, well, we don't want to invest in them because they're going to leave. So why should we invest in them? Well, the opposite side of that is, what if you don't invest in them and they stay? So, sometimes you just have to recognize there is going to be a transition to your people. But in the long run, investing in your people is always a good bet. Bored and complacent employees will leave. They will leave your organization. But the other side of that is bored and complacent employees sometimes will stay and erode your culture. So there's ways you can avoid having a bored and complacent staff by giving them challenges, shifting things up, giving them opportunities to grow, leadership, keeping the same people, in charge and kind of having a ceiling for people to be elevated in leadership position, things like that. Find ways to challenge and develop them professionally. So these are some of the things we thought about for reducing attrition in your manufacturing space, particularly around your skilled trades. A lot of other things you can do. At the end of the day, as I've listened to all this, it really comes down to being aware, being engaged, and recognizing that there's a lot of things that motivate and drive your people, but the smart leaders out there right now are paying attention to that, and they're closely following these trends, and they're being proactive about getting ahead of the risks to your business. It's really risk mitigation at the end of the day.
No, it is. You're 100%. It's as you said it a minute ago, Tim. It's simple. We probably didn't share anything today that you haven't heard or thought about. Before. But it's simple but not easy. So, but you also have to just really, you've got to think through these pieces because, like I said, we're in an extremely competitive market, and you're making, it's been this way for several years now. You ask, CEOs of companies what's their going to be their number one challenge of achieving their goals, and year after year for several years now it's been acquiring the talent or retaining the talent that we need to achieve what's out there. The opportunity is there. It's are we maintaining? Well, obviously you can continue to chase the front end, and you know, that's one way. But obviously, if you can keep from bleeding out in the back end and losing your talent, you know, that needs to probably have as much focus as the front end.
Yeah, well said. So again, we want to always thank you for joining us here on the Skillwork Forum, and we'll say again and point you to our friends at Texas Boys Outdoors. You know, our garb that we're wearing today, we talked about at the beginning of the podcast. Check them out on Pursuit Channel. Texas Roy and the boys down there, they do a great job recognizing first responders, military, kids and children and people that have medical challenges and handicaps. They do a great work. We're proud to be a sponsor of theirs, and we look forward to continuing that in the future. So until next time we get a chance to talk again, have a great day and God bless.